Welcome back to another video, and what I'm going to talk about today are my 10 best guitars, amps, and effects, and maybe a piano. So I just did my 10 worst, and boy, that one was a lot of fun. Got all kinds of great comments on that one. And so I'm going to do my 10 best now. And actually, I was going to do these in the reverse order. I was going to do my 10 best first, then my 10 worst, but I just decided at the last minute I was going to do my worst, and that's kind of the one that, came out and I put up on the channel. So now we're going to do the 10 best. And once again, these are not in any particular order. These are just the 10 best pieces of gear I've had over the course of my playing music. And of course, in this one, I do have a piano in this one also. So in no particular order, I'm just going to start, and we're going to run down the list. I apologize. This may be a little long, this video, because I always give an explanation of why I love or do not like a piece of gear. So if I can remember, I'll put chapter markers in. And so before everybody starts, oh, the video is way too long, I do explain everything that I do. So here we go. Coming in at number 10, the GT6. This is the Boss GT6, and a lot of you may not even know what this is. This was before modeling was actually a thing, before Kempers and Fractals and all that stuff. And Boss was coming out with some, little controllers, and it was basically a modeler, but it was, nothing was captured. It was just strictly a model. And I bought one years ago. And I bought it because I was tired of every time I wanted to practice. I had to click all my amps and my effects rack and all that on, and I just wanted something small, and I did not have a practice amp. So I went ahead and bought a GT6 because I thought, this would be pretty cool. I can put my headphones on, and I can just sit there and I can play, yada, yada. And so I went down to Guitar Center, back when Guitar Center was a good store, and they had a couple of used ones in there. So I bought the most beat-up one I could find. It was like $120 for this thing back then. And so I take it home and I start going through it. Okay, that sound sucks. That sound sucks. That sound sucks. And but it did have some really good clean tones on it, and that I ended up using, for noodling and all that stuff. But as I'm going through, I come across this high gain sound, and and I hit it, and I go past, and I'm like, hang on. So I go back one, and I play it again, and I got to tell you, this was literally one of the most massive lead tones I've ever heard in my life. This thing was freaking huge. And actually, when we were doing our demos and stuff, back when, we were in bands and we let's do it, man, let's go, let's make it big. Back in those days, actually, some of the songs, the demo songs that I cut, I used that GT6 for the leads because it was just freaking massive. And you can hear it on a couple of my intro songs to my channel, my videos. That lead sound you hear is that GT6, which is just absolutely phenomenal. And that thing was just a brilliant freaking tone. And I think it was based off a 2203 Marshall. Don't hold me to that. And I remember, kind of digging through the settings, and dude, they had all kinds. They had EQs and this and that, and part of it scooped, and then an after EQ that was pushed, and then a pre EQ it was just really an odd setting. And but it was massive and it was huge, and I loved it. So actually, I played with that for a few years, and every time I would cut on our demos, I would cut solos, I always used that GT6. Well, then it got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I want to use my amps to do all this. So the GT6 started sitting, and I actually ended up selling it off to a friend of mine, who he ended up selling it off to somebody else. Well, it was about 6 months later. I was like, man, I just missed that GT6. So I went down to Guitar Center, and they still had a couple of used ones. So I bought the biggest, crappiest one I could find. I took it home, not even close. The sound wasn't there. The patch was there, but the sound wasn't even close. So I took that one back, and I bought the other one they had. Same thing. I don't know if the one that I had was modded, because it was pretty beat to hell and back. And obviously somebody had been in it, because the screws, you could tell where they had a screwdriver in it. And I don't know if somebody modded it. I don't even know if you can mod that. But I got to tell you, that is still, to this day, one of the best, just nasty rock and roll lead tones I've ever heard in my life was in that old Boss GT6. Coming in at number 9, my Parker Fly Deluxe. Now, if you're not familiar with the Parker Fly Deluxes, you really need to check this guitar out. These guitars were years ahead of their time. They're fabulous guitars, and they were all composite. And mine was this purplish blue metallic, kind of an odd color, but it was still a very pretty guitar. And it had the two DiMarzio pickups. It had a piezo in it, piezo, however the hell you say it. I've heard it called a million things. And the cool thing about it was it did have a floating trim, but the trim had a switch on the back, and you could flip that switch, and it would set the floating trim into a hardtail, which was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love that about it. The only problem I have with the guitar, and it wasn't a problem, it was a me problem, not a guitar problem, is that at that time, my whole guitar world was Peavey Wolfgangs. I had 13 of them at one point, and I used to take 4 of them to a show. I had 2 that were tuned exactly the same. I had a hardtail that was an alternate tuning, and then I always had just one backup just in case. And a lot of times I would just leave it in the case, but I always took 4 guitars with me because we used to gig a lot. I mean, a lot back in the day. And so it kind of took a back seat to my Wolfgangs, and I never took it to a show, never played it at a show one time, but I always played it when I went home. And the only reason I never took it to a show is because it was so different from my Wolfgangs that I always had to have that little bit of adjustment time on that guitar. It was very hard for me to go from a Wolfgang to that, as opposed to what it is today for me. I can play virtually anything today simply because I wanted to make sure I took the time that no matter what guitar I picked up, I could play it equally as well. But back then, it was just all about the Peavey Wolfgangs for me. And so I ended up selling it. Bad idea. Very bad idea. And then, several years went by, and a couple years ago, I went down to my buddy. He has a little music store, and he has a white Parker Fly Deluxe that he still has. And I didn't know he still had it. And I was like, damn, dude, you still got your Parker? And he said, yeah. I said, hell, let me play it. So he gave it to me, and we were actually playing a show on a big paddle boat, one of those big party boat things. We were playing a show on that, and he actually let me take that Parker to that show because I just, I want to play one at a show. And I got to tell you, absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. That guitar is simply brilliant. And we finished up the show, and I played it for, 5 or 6 songs, but I still played my Wolfgangs mostly. And this is right before I really got into my Ibanez phase. And so I went back, and I was like, dude, you got to sell me this guitar. I love this thing. And of course, he wouldn't sell it, because they're hard to find now. And if you do find them in good shape, you're going to pay a fortune for them as opposed to what they cost. But if you haven't had a chance to check out a Parker Fly Deluxe, or if you're lucky enough to get one, man, you got to check them out. They're simply brilliant guitars. I hate what happened to Kim Parker, but that is life. So at number 9, it's my Parker Fly Deluxe. Now, when I ended up selling off my Parker Fly Deluxe, it actually turned into a Gibson ES 335. And that is, without a doubt, one of the best guitars ever made, the 335. They are simply brilliant guitars. I still think I have pictures of it up on my Facebook. I'm not sure. And mine was the Red Flame Maple one, and played that for quite a while. Played it for a long time. And that was kind of where I started transitioning a little bit away from the Wolfgangs, to where the Wolfgangs were not just primarily my only guitar that I played. And wonderful guitars. And I'm sure you know what a 335 is if you're watching this. And I got to tell you, man, a 335 through a Fender Super Reverb is literally one of the most beautiful sounds you'll hear in this world. It is an absolutely lovely, brilliant, warm, just everything about that tone is amazing. And played it for quite some time. And took it to a few shows. When we do some early Rush stuff, I would always bring out that 335. And it just happened to be that I had a band that we just did, we didn't really focus in on anything. We did a lot of originals, but we also did a very broad array of music. And I would actually pull it out on some Gary Moore. We do still got the blues, and I would pull it out on that because the tone was just fantastic on that guitar. And, and if you've played a 335, you know what I'm talking about. And they're just very good at playing guitars. They're brilliant guitars. They're big. They're big guitars. But and here again, I ended up getting rid of that because things change and tastes change. But what happened as I jumped into another band. And in this band, we were just going to do straight up metal. We were just going to do metal, heavy rock, heavy metal. And as you know, being that is a hollow body, it just did not react well to very high gain. It would get very feedbacky. So the guitar started sitting at the house, and actually it sat under my bed for probably over a year. untouched. And then I pulled it out one day, I was looking at it, a beautiful guitar. And at that point in my life, I was like, well, I'm going to be playing this type of music, for a long time. I'd rather somebody have it and enjoy it. So I ended up selling that off, as I've done so much gear in my life. But I got to tell you, man, if you ever get a chance to really sit and play a 335 through a good Fender amp, take that opportunity, because the sound is amazing and the guitar is simply marvelous. Coming in at number 7, I'm going to change gears a little bit, and this is going to be my Yamaha CP 300 digital stage piano. I love my pianos, and there for years I had a grand piano that I absolutely loved. It was, a different life. I'm going to leave it at that. And which I absolutely loved. I had a 5.7 Yamaha Grand. It was ebony, and it was just amazing. Everything about that piano was amazing. But the problem I had with the piano, and well, let me rephrase that. It's not a problem. But when you own a piano like that, I became very anal about that piano. I was constantly, every 6 months I had it tuned. I was having the hammer softened. And, when I wasn't playing it, I kept it covered with a big sheet, because it's a beautiful piece. And back then, I paid $17,000 for that piano. And it was just absolutely amazing. Well, lo and behold, divorce came, lost the piano. And that sucked. Because I wasn't going to buy another one. And I was like, shit, what do I do now? So I went through a myriad of digital pianos, and they all sucked. Everything I bought sucked. And so I was buying them and returning them, buying and returning them. So luckily I ended up on a P250, Yamaha P250. And it was actually pretty damn nice. I liked it. It had graded keys. It had the speakers in it. More on that in a second. Very heavy unit, built like a freaking tank. But it was really, really good for what I needed to do, because obviously I play piano. And so when Yamaha made the CP300, it had the new engines in it and stuff like that, I thought, well, okay, I sold my P250 and I bought the CP300. I've had this ever since. This thing has just been a staple in my house. It's been a staple on my stage. I don't carry it anymore because it weighs 100 pounds. And the thing I like about it is, now it does have the plastic keys like, a lot of pianos do, but they are graded keys. They're heavier at the bottom than they are at the top, and it's graded from a 9-foot conservatory Yamaha piano. And the sounds in it are obviously sampled. And they did a very good job, because when you strike the string very hard, you can hear the overtones that a piano produces in the CP300. But what I absolutely love about it, and I don't think Yamaha does this anymore in their stage pianos, is this one has built-in voiced speakers. That is the greatest thing in the world, because all the other pianos I had, every time I wanted to play them, I had to hook them up to my board, turn everything on, turn the speakers on, and it never sounded exactly right. And if you play digital pianos, you know what I'm talking about. The sound you hear in the headphones is never the sound that comes out over the PA. So I ended up buying the CP300, and I got to tell you, it is just absolutely marvelous. I think it's built like a tank. It has been on so many shows I can't count it, and even had this drunk person come up onto our stage while we were playing and drop a beer right on top of it. And it went across the piano into the right speaker and all down through the keys. And that thing still finished the show. Built like a tank. Granted, when I got home the next day, all the keys were stuck from the idiot's beer. So I had to go in and do some massive cleanup on it. But that thing's just been phenomenal. And it's actually what I teach piano on today. Maybe one day when the wife and I move, may look at getting another grand piano. But right now, the CP300 does everything I needed to do. And then if I need to go play a show and I need a really, really good feeling piano, I can just take that. So if you get a chance, check out the CP300. They're awesome. And Yamaha doesn't make them anymore, unfortunately. All right, next we have, one of the greatest amps ever made. This is the Mesa Boogie Stereo 5050. This thing is a monster. Absolutely loved it. I had 4 6L6 tubes in it. It had a right and a left channel, had their own volumes on them, had their own outputs in the back, had their old clankety fans. You turn them on, you could hear the fans rattling in them. And that's just rock and roll to me, dude. It was fantastic. And what I did is I ended up selling off. I had a Peavey XXX at one time, and which is a fantastic amp, by the way. Brilliant amplifier. If you're into metal or seriously hard rock, that Peavey XXX is a monster. And I actually had that paired up through a Mesa Boogie, set of Mesa Boogie cab, 4x12 cabs with the black shadows in them, which did not make my list, but it could have made my list, because those are probably some of the best cabs I've ever played in my life. And but I actually bought the 5050. And what I was doing is I was running back in the day. I was running a Rocktron Prophecy 2 through it. And the Rocktron Prophecy 2, like I said, it was kind of modeling, before it was a real big thing, but it had some really damn good sounds in it. And coming through that stereo 50/50 into those two Mesa cabs, it was absolutely huge. And I could run stereo from the stage, which was seriously cool, which is a very subjective thing. Stereo is a very subjective thing. 'Cause stereo only works when you're standing in the exact spot for stereo. As soon as you drift right or left, it's no longer stereo. So it's kind of a subjective thing, but in my head, it worked out fantastically. But it is an absolutely brilliant amp, and I don't care what you put in front of it, that made it sound better. That is one of the best sounding amps I've ever had in my life. So if you have something like a JMP, run it into that Mesa Boogie, guaranteed good tone right out of the box. Guaranteed good tone. That thing was absolutely wonderful. I ended up getting rid of it, like I said, because things change, and I wanted to move back to a full regular head amp, everything like that. That's one of the pieces of gear that I really should have kept. I should have just tossed it in the closet and left it there, because they're getting actually very hard to find now in good shape. When you do find them, you're going to pay for them. They're not cheap anymore. And it was just absolutely fantastic. It was a brilliant piece of gear. The only downside to it was it was very heavy, and it was a 4 rack space. 4 or 5, I can't remember. I think it was 4. So, it was this damn tall. And you put that in your rack with your effects, now all of a sudden your rack weighs, 50 pounds if it's a little rack that you carry. But regardless, I sold it because that's when I ended up going back to full amps. And I think I actually sold that, and that's when I bought my Marshall JVM, if I'm not mistaken. And I wanted a full amp head. And it was absolutely brilliant. Never should have sold that one. That's one I should have kept. I should have just hung on to it forever and just tossed it in the closet and left it there, because, those are getting extremely hard to find. So if you get a chance to check out a Mesa Boogie 50/50 stereo, by all means, man, check one out. And better yet, if you get a chance to buy one, buy it, keep it for a few years and sell it and make some damn money off of it. All right, moving into the next spot. This is my Fender Super Reverb Silverface. The one with the 410 speakers on it. Absolutely amazing. You remember I said earlier that ES335 through a Fender 410 Super Reverb? Yeah, this was the amp. This was the amp that went with that guitar. And absolutely stunning. The sound of the two was absolutely stunning. And in my world, you will not get a better clean tone. I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter. To my ears, you cannot beat an ES335 or a very good Strat in position 4 going through a Super Reverb with the 412s. Those are two of the best sounds ever made in this world. And I used it, and I had a Fender back then. I had an Ultra Deluxe Plus. It had the lace sensors in it. And it had a double red, a silver, and a blue in the front. And then I had a Hot Rod Telly also. And all three of those guitars were phenomenal through that Super Reverb, as was my Wolfgangs. My Wolfgangs were absolutely, magnificent through those that Super Reverb. But what I really keyed in on was the warmth of that ES335 coming through that amp, because it just added that much more warmth to it. And it just had this amazing bottom end, this really soothing mid-range, and it just had this pop to it. I mean, it just had this I can't explain it. It just absolutely amazing. And you get on it and you start doing some lead tones. Back then I had a pedal board, and I had an EVH, that Phase 90. It's just magic. An ES335, a Phase 90, and a Super Reverb is absolutely magic, and one of the best things I've ever heard. And it sounds like water. And if you're a guitar player, you know what I'm talking about when I say it sounds like water. Absolutely freaking amazing. I ended up selling that off to a friend of mine who really, really wanted it. And like I said, that's kind of all I really used it for. And then when I quit playing my Fender, my Gibson ES335, I kind of quit playing the Fender too. And they were both sitting. So I actually sold that to another friend of mine. And believe it or not, I tried to buy it back, and the dude wouldn't sell it back to me. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't have either. I shouldn't have sold it the first time. He's like, dude, I can't. I can't. I love the amp. And I was like, I get it, man. Those are not cheap amps. Those are amazing amps. So there again, if you haven't played one of those, if you get a chance to play a Gibson 335, do a Super Reverb, take the chance. Even if you don't know how to play, just strum the damn guitar, because the sound will make you cry. Absolutely perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. All right, moving on. Coming into the number 4 spot. Now, this is my Randall RM 100. I talked about this in the last video a little bit. This amp is simply amazing. And this is the one that came after my Marshall JVM. And I really thought this was going to be the last amp I bought. But then as I kept getting older and I got tired of lugging shit around, that's when everything started getting smaller and smaller in my world. But this was absolutely stunning. I had 2 of the Randall cabs. They were made of birch, if I'm not mistaken, had the Celestian V30s in it. And the way I used to do it, because somebody made a comment in the last video, dude, you ran a full stack, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, obviously you don't know what you're talking about if you watch this video. Yes, I ran a full stack, but I didn't stack it on top of each other, nuthead. I had one speaker on one side, the side I stood on, but I always put another speaker on the other side. And that way my singer, no matter where they moved, they could always hear my guitars. And that's why I did it. And that's why I played with a full stack. And but I didn't stack it on top of each other, just, anyway. So fantastic amp. And if you're not familiar with the Randall RM 100, it's basically what the Synergy is today. It has the preamp modules that you could pop in and out. And it was just brilliant. It was basically tube modeling is what it was before there was really modeling like the Fractal and the Kemper and all that stuff. It was just simply amazing. And what I don't know why they quit making the RM100, because I know they had quite a bit of celebrity endorsements. I know Kurt Hammett had one, George Lynch had one. They had their own, the Kurt Hammett, model and the George Lynch model of the modules. And I don't know if this is why they quit making it, but they made one called a Brown module, which was basically channel 2 of a 5153, which sounded exactly like the 5153. Now, I just read this. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently, I guess Randall somehow got their hands on the circuitry. I guess they bought one and just broke the circuitry down and copied the circuitry and put it in the module, and it sounded exactly like it. I mean, you couldn't tell the difference. And Fender ended up suing them about it. And if I'm not mistaken, they got like 150 or 200 of those Brown modules made before they had to discontinue that module. I don't know if that's what caused them to discontinue the amp. I have no idea. But I do know that if you couldn't get a Brown it, there was a guy at the time, you could buy the Plexi mod, send it to him, and he would mod the mod, and it would come back a Brown mod. And absolutely fantastic. But I had a clean, which was a Fender Super Reverb. That was the module I had, the Fender Super Reverb. And it was called Blackface. I had a Mesa Boogie dual rec. It was called Tread Plate, just brutal rhythm channel, absolutely brutal. I had one of Randall's own high gain mods for my lead channel, which was fantastic. And then I had my Brown mod in there also, which is just that was just an all-around mod. You could hit a boost pedal on it, you could lead with it, solo, the whole 9 yards, use it for your rhythm, everything. And unfortunately, that was the amp I sold simply because I was tired of carrying stuff around. I started paring everything down, smaller mixers, smaller speakers, smaller heads, smaller everything, because I just didn't want to carry that stuff around anymore because I was carrying around so much. But it is a magical amp. I believe they make one in a combo too, a 212 100-watt combo that takes the 4 modules. Brilliant. I don't know if the Synergy modules plug into it or not, but it's basically back then what the Synergy is today. And, the Synergy is obviously picking up some steam because I see a lot of people starting to play them. So coming in at number 4, I got to go with my Randall RM100. It was a fantastic amp. Coming in at number 3, my Fractal FM3. Now, this is ultimately what got me out of the tube amp world. Was my Kemper that got me out. And like I said, man, I just got tired of lugging gear around, heavy-ass gear everywhere. So I started looking for ways to pare my gear down, but still, have relatively good tone. And this is when I started out with the Helix, which sucked. I'm going to say it again. It sucked. For all the people, all the fanboys that beat on me on my last video, which is fine, make your comments. Hell, I don't care. When the Helix came out, it sucked. It was terrible when it came out. I kept it 30 days. It sucked all 30 days. So I ended up taking it back, and that's when I ended up getting a Kemper. And I'm going to tell you right out of the box, the Helix does not even stand a candle to a Kemper. It's not even close. It's night and day. Now, on that statement, before you fanboys get all pissy like you did last time, they have made, I know there's been a lot of updates on the Helix, a lot of new IRs, and now they're actually not bad units. They've got some really good tones on them. But when it first came out of the box, it was trash. So, you know, if you want to send me, and real quick, one guy said, dude, I don't mean to be a dickhead. No. And I replied back to him, dude, be a dickhead. It's your opinion. It doesn't bother me. You can send me the nasty comments. It don't bother me. And I try to reply to everything if I can. But don't, you know, just for the sake of being, you know, whatever, you know, if you got something you want to say it, you know, and if you disagree with me, but that's totally fine. It's your God-given right. Disagree with me. But I ended up sending the Helix back, and I got a Fractal, which was amazing. And I actually gigged with that Fractal for 2 years. And it was just it's a stunning piece of gear. And if you want to hear, it's my tone, that, you know, my personal tone, that all my amps, I always kind of go for the same tone. If you watch the review of the Ibanez 5320 that I did, that is my Kemper, that heavy tone. And it's just absolutely brilliant tone, brilliant. And that's in the room. That's not even running direct. I threw a mic up, in the room so you could hear what it sounds like in the room. And believe it or not, even off that one video, well, I've sold a lot of Ibanez guitars off of that video, but I've had so many people ask me about that tone. Dude, it's a Kemper. You know, it's an absolutely fantastic tone. And the Kempers were magical. And I gigged with the Kemper for a couple of years and absolutely loved it. But I ran into Andy Wood. If you don't know who Andy Wood is, check out his channel. We live in the same city. I mean, we know each other. We're not buds. We don't drink beer together and all that stuff. But when we see each other, hey, what's going on, man? What's happening? And we were talking about, and he's a big Fractal fan. He's like, dude, you got to try it out. He said, the effects, you got to try it out. And I was like, man, I said, I think the amps on the Kemper are just a tweak better. And he said, you know, they may be, but you got to check out the Fractal. So I bought the FM3, and he was right. Dude, the effects on the FM3, they're studio quality. They're absolutely amazing. And it was enough to get me to switch to the Fractal. Absolutely brilliant. And now with the new Cygnus engine, the amp models are equally as good as what's on the Kemper. I love the Fractal. Absolutely love it. And what happened was I bought the FM3 and I bought the FC12 controller, the big controller, because if I liked the Fractal, I was going to get rid of the FM3 or keep it or whatever have you, and I was going to buy the rack mount. But during my little 6-month testing period to make sure that, you know, I could do everything I wanted to do, and I kept my Kemper in my rack, and I had my FM3 because I was really sold on the Kemper. And they came out with the FM9, and I thought, well, shit, cool. Now I can just, you know, I won't have to get the rack mount. I'll just get the FM9, and then I won't have to have my FC12 controller anymore. Well, I signed up for the FM9. Well, over a year, I was still on the waiting list. And so they finally sent me a thing a year later and said, hey, your FM9's available. And I thought, you know what? I don't need it. I've got my FC12, so I got all the buttons I need. I used the FM3 just as the brain. But there's not a single sound that I have or a tone that I use that I've maxed out the CPU. So I really didn't see a reason to buy the FM9, and I kept the FM3, which I've been gigging with for 3 years now, 3 years, and it's been brilliant every single show. I have zero complaints about the FM3. It has been absolutely fantastic. The sounds are amazing. I just put my new band back together. Took some time off from gigging. I don't know if you knew that, and why would you? I mean, you know, who cares, right? But I took some time off. I just had to get out of it for a while because, you know, if you've been in a band, it can be a very big pain in the ass. And so, but I do have a new band back together, and even the guys in my new band, they're like, dude, your tone is absolutely sick. And I spent a lot of time tweaking that FM3, but it's just a variation of the tone that was on my Kemper, of the tone that was on my Randall, and believe it or not, this is the tone that goes all the way back to that GT6. Believe it or not, that tone on that GT6 was absolutely amazing, and it ingrained that tone into me so much that has now become my sound. So the Fractal FM3, man, if you move into the modeling world, if you get the Fractal products, you'll have no regrets. They're simply amazing. And granted, don't get me wrong. I know there's people out there that's going to say it sucks, it's this, it's that, and that's fine. You know, it's why they make chocolate ice cream. Not everybody eats vanilla. Just like I think the Helix sucks, I'm sure a lot of people think the Fractal sucks, which is absolutely fine. And but for me, the Fractal is just fantastic. And once you understand how to use a Fractal and how to dial it in, the rest of it's just kind of magic from there. Coming in at number 2 is my 1996 Peavey Eddie Van Halen Wolfgang. Now, if you've watched my channel, if you've been subscribed, you've seen this guitar, and I've talked about this guitar 1,000 times. This is, without a doubt, one of the greatest guitars I've ever had in my life. This guitar is coming up on 30 years old now. And like I said, I had 13 at one point, and they've all been sold because I wanted to branch out into other things. I didn't just want to keep playing the same thing. And it's what I was talking about when I was talking about the Parker Fly Deluxe. Is I spent so much time on the Wolfgangs that I literally couldn't play anything else because it just felt too different. And so I literally spent, and I'm not bullshitting, I literally spent a year playing everything I could get my hands on. Because I thought, my God, how can you be a guitar player and not be able to play anything at any time? And so now it doesn't matter what I pick up, I can just play it. And because I literally spent a year playing everything in the world. So, but if you have a bunch of guitars of the same guitar, and you know what I'm talking about if you're a guitarist, there's always one that plays better than everything else, even though they're the same. You can buy two the same color, made it the same year, but one's going to play better than the other one. And that was this god-awful, ugly tobacco burst. And I'm just not a big fan of tobacco burst. I wish it was just all the amber without the black on it, but it is what it is. This thing has been a tank. It has been a workhorse. I cannot count how many shows this guitar has played. In 30-degree weather, in 105-degree weather, indoors, outdoors. I've even been rained on playing a show with this guitar, and that sucks. That is not fun. And it's amazing, man. It's got some chips on it, got a couple of gouges in it. I think I lost that like the second week that I had it. That went away. And I took it off and I'll put it back on later, and then never found it again. Everything on it is still original minus the frets. I changed out the frets. I went with stainless steel. These are called skinny tall frets. And I'm sure the nomenclature on them is like, BR9635421, whatever the hell that is. But they're much skinnier than a jumbo fret, and almost as tall. And they're actually about as wide as a vintage fret. Okay, on the new EVH guitars, it's that fret, but taller, put it that way. And which just happen to be my favorite frets in the world. I love them. And other than that, I've done nothing to this guitar. Everything on it's still original. Original trim, original pickups. It's even still got the original pots in it. Now, I'm going to need to change some things out because now it's kind of getting to the point to where the trim and everything is so worn that it will start to drift out of tune a little bit playing live, which kind of sucks when you use the trim. But it's just everything, 30 years, man. And this thing's just, this trim system has been depressed a bazillion times. And it's just starting to get a little worn out. So I probably need to do some upgrading on it. But still, until this day, I do not go to a show without this guitar. This guitar goes with me everywhere I go. I take this guitar. And I did a video where I tried the new, because I was going to buy one of the new EVH Wolfgangs until I saw the price. And I was like, hell no, I'm not buying it. So then I was going to buy the Japanese Wolfgang. And then I played it. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to buy it. Very unimpressed with that guitar. But even after playing the American ones, the new Fender ones, I still like the Peavey ones better. I like them better. They're a little thicker in the body. It feels a little thicker to me in the body. I like the straight 15-degree radius all the way up and down instead of the compound. And I still think that the Peavey is a superior guitar over the Fender model. I just think it's a superior guitar. I got the bird's eye maple neck. And the beauty of this one is I played it for so long that this neck is so worn back in the back. I mean, it's like silk back here now to my hand from all the years of dirt and sweat and everything. And this thing is formed brilliantly to my hand now. And it's just, this is a magical guitar. Absolutely magical. And I'll never get rid of this. I will have this forever. This will end up, my daughter and hopefully her kids one day will be playing on this guitar. So the Peavey EVH Wolfgang, there's nothing else. I will put this guitar up against any guitar in this world. Hands none. This is a fantastic instrument. Which brings me to my number one position. And like I said, these are in no particular orders. And that is my Ibanez J Custom. I got to be honest with you. I've played a lot of guitars and I've owned a lot of guitars in my life. This is probably the finest guitar I've ever played. Until I bought this, that 96 Peavey Wolfgang was the best guitar I've ever played. And like I said, I'll argue that point anybody, anywhere, any day. I will argue that point till I die. Then I got this. Now, I'm not going to say it plays better than my 96. It plays equally as good. But there again, this guitar just happens to be utter magic. Everything about this guitar is perfect. And I'm not exaggerating. If it wasn't, I would not have spent $3,000 on it. Actually, I didn't spend $3,000 on it. This was actually a present from my wife. We found it, and I was like, "Oh my God, look at that!" You know, and I knew this was the rare color. This was an exclusive Sweetwater color, and lo and behold, she bought it. Christmas came up a couple years ago, and this was under the tree. And I got an amazing wife. And but this thing it's awesome. I love this color. It's called something Garn Ambidite, blah blah. I can't even pronounce the damn name of the color, but it's a very, very deep red, and you can see it's a flame maple. It's got a really nice flame on it. Beautiful guitar, beautiful. It's got this lovely natural binding on it. This is a lovely natural binding on this absolutely gorgeous flame maple top. Has the Low Pro trim system on it, which is brilliant. My favorite trim system in the world is the Low Pro. I would love to be able to squeeze one of these onto my Wolfgangs, man. That would be awesome. It does have the DiMarzio pickups in them. Now, these are good pickups. These are not my favorite pickups. And one day I'll probably change them out of this guitar. But this is the standard Ibanez run-of-the-mill DiMarzios. They literally put in everything. And I guess that's kind of my bummer on it, is they literally put this guitar setup literally into everything. And unless you get something like the 5320, which has the Fusion pickups in it, which are brilliant, absolutely brilliant pickups, as does the 1120, has the Fusion pickups in it. And again, brilliant. And that's a brilliant damn guitar. The 1120, that's the Indonesian version of the 5320. Amazing guitar. And so it has the DiMarzios in it, has the 5-way switch. I did take my volume off and I put my kill switch on it. I do have a video. This is a Tessie kill switch. The neck on this thing, flawless. This is a 5-piece maple. The beautiful ebony front with the Tree of Life. Absolutely fantastic. You can see here, it's got the binding on the side of the neck also, that natural binding, which is simply a lovely natural binding on the side of the neck of the Ibanez J Custom. Absolutely fantastic, man. Locking trim. One thing I do like about this, and I don't know if this is just to this J Custom, but it does have the ZP-S system on the back, which I think is brilliant. Love that on Ibanez. The most stable trims in the world, man, is this system right here. I mean, you can punish these things, and they just simply don't move. They stay and do what they got to do. The Low Pro, and like I said, this is literally one of my favorite trims in the world. It kind of disappears under your hand. To me, Floyd's feel a little big and chunky in the back. These just kind of disappear like a Bridgewood under your hand. And this guitar, I need to clean it up some more. I wiped it down, but you can still see the smudges on it. And it's got the same, colored all the way in the back with a matching headstock that they don't charge you $400 for like Sir does. Shame on them. And brilliant guitar, man. And like I said, this is the guitar. Ibanez is actually the guitar that got me out of my Wolfgangs, because, like I said, I had all these guitars and I wasn't playing them. I just kept playing my Wolfgangs until I bought the 5320, the Ibanez 5320, which I did sell. I did get rid of that one because I've got the 1120, which is the Indonesian model of it. And I bought that one because it only has a volume knob, and they moved the volume knob way down because I hate volume knobs right next to the strings. And I ended up playing it has the Evo Gold frets on it, but the same pickups, and it's got a 10-way switching system on it, which is fantastic. So I ended up playing the 1120 all the time, and the 5320 was just sitting. So I actually ended up selling the 5320. Sorry, guys. But it's still an amazing guitar. But I didn't need two guitars of the same exact thing. That's how back in the day, all my guitars were exactly the same, and that's why I got rid of all the Wolfgangs. I want all different guitars now, different sounds, different tones, different feels, different emotions, different everything. So in the last spot is my my J Custom, and I got to tell you, man, this guitar is without a doubt one of the finest guitars I've ever played. Now I'm getting ready to wrap this up. I've said a million times in my videos, I try not to spend over $2,000 on guitar for the obvious reason. You put them on a stage, you end up beating the shit out of them. This guitar is $3,000, the J Custom. Here's the deal, though, and this is how I can justify it. Before I bought this J Custom, I played 15, 20 PRSs. I played every Gibson I could get my hands on. I even played a couple of Andersons, which are damn nice guitars. I actually went back and played another Sir. Over at the music store we have down the road from me here, I went back and played another Sir. And then I played the J Custom. And I'm going to tell you now, I will put this $3,000 J Custom against any of those guitars that I played. Any of them. Now, granted, the Les Pauls were $3,000, but I paid a $4,800, $4,900, $5,100 Sir. This is a better playing guitar. The Andersons are nice. Dude, they're freaking nice. They're very Surish. I'm sorry. For thousands of dollars less, the J Custom was a better guitar. I like the look of it better. I like the feel of it better. And I got to admit, I am kind of an Ibanez type of guy. I got to admit that. But this neck on this J Custom it's amazing. It is literally one of the best necks I've ever played in my life. And until I got this, the best neck I'd ever played in my life was that 96 Wolfgang. So I've got two amazing guitars that I'd take to me with every single show. So I take three guitars now. I take my 1120 Ibanez, my J Custom, and I take my Wolfgang. Those are the three guitars now I take to every single show. So I'm going to wrap this one up right there. This is my 10 best. I've already done my 10 worst. These are now my 10 best. And you may agree, you may disagree with everything that I said on here, and that is okay because God gave you one thing, and he gave you free will to choose what you want to choose. And then the great words of Geddy Lee, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. That's one of the best lines in music, is it not? And my favorite Rush song, by the way. But one of the best lines of music, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. You chose not to decide. Fantastic, man. That damn Neil Peart. And Neil Peart he was quite the wordsmith. So, but I'm going to wrap this one up right there. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave it down in the comments section. I try to answer all questions. There was a lot of questions in the last video I have not gotten around to answer yet because the comments were coming over faster than I could answer the damn things. And I mean that literally. When I first put the video up, I got up that morning, there was like 40 comments. Before I even got 20 of them knocked out, another 40 would come up. Then I would do 20 more, another 40 would come up. And I was like, my God. And this went on for days. And then finally I was like, all right, I got other channels I got to tend to and other things. I can't sit here and answer questions all day long and in responses. And I'm going to say it again. I've said this numerous times. If you watch my channel, you know I've said this. Please feel free to leave any comment you want. But just remember, if you leave a crappy comment, you're probably going to get a crappy reply. So just be ready for that. So I'm just going to tell you up front. But by all means, if you want to leave a crappy comment, leave it. Because honestly, I think they're kind of fun. I mean, hell, if everybody agreed with me all the time about everything, what fun would the channel be? There'd be no reason to even do it. I like the argument. I enjoy that. So I'm going to wrap this one up right there. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe. $0 to subscribe to this channel. And keep putting up content the best that I can. I do have another channel that I do spend quite a bit of time on. I do have a podcast, and I do spend a lot of time on my podcast. The videos are much easier to make, obviously, than it is music videos. Those are very time-consuming. But I'm going to wrap it up right there. And I got to say, no matter what you do, for the love of God, rock on.